Hey, it's Dan Prochko with My Pocket Marketing. Thanks for joining in today for another episode of Road to Open. It's a bonus episode today. I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, and it just sounded too important for it to wait for an opening later on as we are approaching businesses and states and the economy reopening all across the country. Real quick housekeeping, if you'd like to be updated about future episodes, other conversations with leaders and owners, other marketers, etc., head over to mypocketmarketing.com/join. That'll get you on our newsletter. Really, right now, all we're doing is putting out marketing insights and then invitations to these conversations. Because with businesses opening up, we want to make sure that you have everything that you need to open successfully so that we can all stay in business and grow. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest today, Torian Greeley of Hub International. We are actually on a board together, Southwest Michigan Professional Network. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. We were just talking before the show, and I was saying, like, I must live like under a turtle shell or in a cave or something because I read the news about last night in downtown Kalamazoo this morning, and was shocked. I emailed all my clients; they're fine. But are you and the family good?
Yeah, everybody's good. We reside over on the west side of town, and we saw some of the protests earlier in the day, and they were luckily staying out of the street and everything like that. People were giving a little honk when they drove past, and
Yeah.
but yeah, the happenings downtown are definitely a little bit unfortunate for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy to see so much of the country doing this all together at the same time, and different conspiracies or other talk too. It's strange. It's strange. There's a lot of legitimacy to the real protesters out there and what they're doing, and it is cool to see that happening in Kalamazoo. Aside from the unfortunate events later on in the night, so
Certainly.
So for the impetus for today, aside from that event, which actually leads into a lot of what you do as a risk consultant, we were talking more about this road to open. And as a risk consultant dealing with liability and other elements, we were talking about the little things that business owners might not be thinking about because they're all wrapped up in these rules and keeping on top of what's going on, et cetera. But before we get into that, what is a risk consultant specifically? Because we hear that and it's like, okay, fill us in a bit about what you do, and how you work with your clients to help them.
Yeah, certainly. So technically, my position is sales executive. I am a risk consultant, though, in the fact that I help clients to manage their risk that is involved with their business. We tailor coverage specific to their business and make sure that we have detailed and specific solutions for their unique issues specific to each different type of business. So what we really like to do is partner with our clients, learn their business, see what the day-to-day looks like, talk through their current insurance program and where it might be a little bit stronger. Particularly for myself, I work on the property and casualty side. I know insurance is a broad industry.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah, so I work on the property and casualty side, which is going to be your general liability, your property, workers' comp, your business auto, umbrella, and items along those lines. Separate from, a lot of times I get questions about life and health, so that would be a separate division that we also have in-house at Hub.
Okay, so you have that in-house, whether or not you specialize. So yeah, so
yes.
You're out there talking with a lot of companies dealing with the issues that they're having right now, and with COVID hitting and the lockdown in Michigan or across, your spectrum of clients. What's some of what you've been hearing?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a wild ride, as a lot of people know. Dealing with that initial shock of having to close business was really our primary focus when all this kind of started happening in March. We made a pivot ourselves. You hear a lot of businesses talking about they've had to pivot since this COVID-19 thing, and we had to do the same thing. Being a sales agency, we had to make sure that our clients were taken care of, that they had a plan in place, and really provided those resources for them as things were so uncertain. And now it's kind of nice to see that we have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with the economy being reopened. There's still quite a long list of businesses that are not going to be able to reopen.
Yeah.
But initially, one of the main topics that we heard was, the folks that are moving their employees from physically being in a building to working from home,
Right.
and that's the cyber liability exposure. With them operating over your business's software, typically, you've got the protections and the firewalls for your office, but what happens when your employees are now taking laptops home and you've got everybody on a different internet connection and operating at different times a day? What are the protections like? What is your cyber liability protection looking like?
I know, having worked for an IT company in the past, like a lot of what we did at companies' offices, whether they were remote or not, I mean, we're talking segmenting that data or that connection, so that having those remote employees, you have that VPN, which really says like all this data is going to get sent through this tube. It's encrypted, it's protected, even though they're working at home on a home network, et cetera. So that data is kept separate from other things. And I'm sure that's part of what you consult on. I mean, other things I'm thinking here are like just PPI exposure. No, PII exposure, not PPI. Personal identifying information. PII, healthcare. See, I got a little bit in. There we go. Like HIPAA stuff. PII. There we go. I mean, so many acronyms. We're gonna get there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
yeah, those are all encompassed in the cyber liability protection. So anything from sensitive data, customer data that you might keep in hand, your company software. A lot of what we've been seeing are hackers that get inside your system with ransomware and encrypt your system and hold it for ransom. For whatever amount of money that it is. And the way that the cyber liability kicks in, if you have that ransomware protection, is they'll simply tell you to cut the check to get your items, unencrypted. And then you file the claim, the carrier pays it out, and essentially and ideally you're back to business. Now, we have some additional steps that we'll take with our risk services team that will help you to identify how that happened in the first place and prevent it from happening again in the future.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know a lot of it is specifically on the ransomware or on a malware side that might encrypt and really lock down your data. I'm still flashbacks to my IT days. It was a lot about having continuity plans in place, really great backups, having having those VPN connections, et cetera. But it was always human error that caused it.
For sure.
In our experience, like 100% of the time, it was human error. It was this email that looked legit. You click it. And then all hell breaks loose.
Exactly.
So, I mean, one, it's great to have those remediation tools available.
Yes.
I don't know if you have statistics on you. I'm going to put you on the spot here about how often do companies actually get those encryption keys when they pay the ransom?
So I honestly don't have the numbers on that. And it all depends on how it's being done, where it's coming from, and what type of coverage that you have in place. But there's definitely solutions for that. And like you said, a lot of times it is just something where, and now kind of bouncing back to the working from home thing. Now you've got an employee who may not be a C-suite decision maker, who gets an email and they're checking it at, it might not be the best time of day. Maybe they're checking it at 11 p.m.
1 in the morning. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this looks kind of normal. And honestly, we even see emails that get through our system sometimes, and you've got to check it out. If it seems a little bit fishy, a lot of times you just look. Sometimes it'll have an extra letter. It will be an email that you've used before, but they're throwing just one extra letter in there so it looks normal to you. You got to be careful and definitely reviewing and having those conversations with your broker or your advisor is definitely what we suggest when it comes to the cyber liability piece.
Yeah, I know a lot of businesses have been doing what's it called? Like cyber citizenship type courses, like just being a good custodian of your own knowledge, of understanding what's going on. One of the things that we've been working on a lot, both with clients and new businesses coming our way, is email authentication. The security layers on top, like SPF, DKIM, DMARC, that tell email providers that, hey, this email sent by whoever sent it is either not legitimate or is legitimate.
Right.
And like helping to put those in place. I'm
Yeah,
talking what?
you're talking to a former underwriter here, so I love hearing all the protections that you guys have in
Yeah,
place. So,
yeah. I mean, and the funny thing is a lot of these things are really easy to put in place, you know. I
yeah,
mean, if all your data is in the cloud, you know, let's say you're O365 or if you're G Suite, I mean, you have a lot less to worry about. You know, it's really difficult for malware
yeah,
to get into those systems and corrupt your data. It's really the
yeah,
data on your devices. We're spending a long time about cyber here, but and that's only one element. I mean, I think it's just because I have a lot of experience in that realm
oh, for
too, and
sure.
so
That's
yeah,
why I know what I'm doing.
yeah.
That's why I touched on that one first for you. I knew you'd like that
Knowing your
one.
audience, I love it. Look at that, marketer
Yeah.
at heart. I love it. But we were, you know, not only on the cyber side, which is great to make sure you have that liability covered because that human error
Yeah.
piece can really expose a lot. I mean, what was it, 5, 6 years ago when we had the huge Target hack
Yes.
and everything? It actually wasn't Target that got hacked; it was their HVAC provider. You know, the thing
Yes.
is we
Exactly.
don't always understand how these tools are connected and or where the weak links are until it happens. And so having that protection and best practices in place is a really great idea. I mean, it's, on a marketing side, we are managing email lists. You know, it's tens of thousands of emails per client. We're talking millions of dollars in sales, and you know, single breaches are worth thousands of dollars in fines. You know, like
Yeah.
it really adds up. And to not have those best practices in place, whether it be the email authentication for your sends to prevent spoofing, or two-factor authentication on your user's end. It's that one extra step. Yeah, it's annoying,
Right.
but it really
Yes.
prevents, you know, getting hacked or getting infiltrated in weird ways. Having those regular audits on what is connected to my Google account, what other software
Mhm.
have I said yes to. I'm sure all of this is part of, you know, a lot of that risk consultation that you do.
Yes.
Okay.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. We're having those conversations and making sure that if they are not satisfied with the level of service that they're getting from whoever their provider is, or taking care of their software, that we're also networked in those avenues as well, so that we can make connections for those business owners to say, hey, this is who you can use and you can trust in their system.
So we were just talking before we went down this whole cyber rabbit
Yes.
hole, which was awesome, by the way. I think a lot of gold there for businesses to put in place. The email
Yes.
authentication, get your two-factor, you know, audit what you have connected, super basic stuff. Take an afternoon, make it happen.
Yes.
But you were having conversations with businesses that you were saying, you know, the number one step was having a plan.
Mhm.
Was it really common to talk with leaders and them not have a plan on how they were going to either address COVID or opening back up for that matter?
So common. I think that the returning to work thing has been a little bit more planned for because people are so ready to get back to it, and a lot of business owners are.
Yeah.
But you know, it's, you know, you touched on business continuity, and this scenario is almost virtually impossible for anyone to prepare for, to the degree that it happened, and to the degree that it affected these businesses. So, I mean, honestly, Dan, I mean, I was having some heartbreaking conversations with people, you know, throughout March, and just trying to figure out ways to help. Now, another one of those things or topics that we addressed were these business owners are now having to shut their doors. They don't have streams of income. The
Yeah.
business interruption coverage that typically is on an insurance policy is not going to cover you for a global pandemic or communicable disease. So there's no, you know, we
Hmm.
saw probably close. I'm probably going to butcher the numbers here, but it was hundreds of millions of dollars in business interruption claims that were filed over the last 12 weeks that have virtually all been declined because the exclusions are there in the policy. And again, the insurers, the insureds themselves, who can prepare for something like this? So
Right. I don't think anybody's
knowing
sitting there looking at their business plan like, oh yeah, in year three there's going to be this pandemic. So what's the? I mean,
exactly,
but what's the recourse? Like, or what are the best practices in this route? I mean, we're
yes.
going to be
So
opening up, and we still have this liability, whether it be the second wave of COVID coming out, or the next wave of whatever it is. Like, what is that recourse?
So it all depends, and it all depends on what type of business you're operating and what you did when the COVID-19 situation happened. So I'm happy you bring that up, because a lot of what we've seen is the businesses that were able to manage keep their doors open had to make a pivot. So we've been seeing people
Yeah.
provide hand sanitizer. We've been seeing people provide PPE equipment. Um, now from a risk consultant's perspective, now we have to have the conversation of now you got a change in condition in your business. Your insurance policy reflects the fact that you, excuse me, that you manufacture cabinets. Well, now you're no longer manufacturing cabinets. You are manufacturing or retailing hand sanitizer.
Right.
Do your exposures fit your coverage? And we need to make sure that it does if you are making those pivots in business.
So like an example, what's some of that liability? So I'm just going to throw an example out here. Let's just say I'm making PPE. I'm making N95 masks. Let's just go that route because that's real top of mind. It turns out that they're not actually N95s. I'm going to be horrible here and just say they're N80s. They don't do 95%. They do 80%.
Right.
They find out.
Right.
Is that the kind of liability you're talking about where something you provide, since you've pivoted, isn't really covered, so you've exposed yourself? Is that part of it, or is it more?
So yes, that's exactly it. So on your liability, the way that insurance companies designate which classification that you're going to be in is by a class code. So that's a way that they can say this is a manufacturer, this is a construction company, this is a coffee shop, is by your class code.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was talking about there when I said if you're manufacturing cabinets, your class code is going to be cabinet manufacturer.
Right.
If a claim happens from your N80 masks that were supposed to be N95, your product liability, one, is not going to cover you for the N95 either, or the N80, because you did not change your class code or add the class code, or check for a change in condition clause in your policy. Sometimes that would be written in there, that they'll give you a certain number of days to report a change in exposure, and they would pay out a claim in that scenario.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is basically if you've made that pivot, and it's vastly different from what you're doing. We're not talking like a distillery or brewery per se doing hand sanitizer, because they're already doing that, brewing and distilling, et cetera.
We're talking a complete pivot to something different.
Complete pivot, very different. If you don't have the change of condition clause that gives you the time to make the change, basically it could all be out of your own pocket is what you're saying. So any of that liability that you get hit with in lawsuits or in negligence is all out of your own pocket.
Correct. And that's why we've been having such in-depth conversations regarding the people that are having those pivots is, look, now you are essentially starting a completely different business. And you're dealing with PPE, which is essentially supposed to be life-saving in some regards. So if that equipment fails, one, do you have the coverage for even supplying that equipment? And two, do you have the product liability that would kick in for that product failure?
Right.
So yes.
So, I mean, I tip my hat to these companies that are pivoting in that way. I mean, we have learned that the manufacturing of these essential items is lacking in this country.
For sure.
So how would a business, I guess there's more than just pivoting. There's so many businesses that have pivoted, like you said. So making sure you have that change of condition if you are thinking of pivot. If you don't, make sure you get in touch with your insurance provider, agent, representative, et cetera, to get that set. So what about the other businesses that aren't pivoting? They're coming back to work. I mean, we talked a little bit about this. It was like they're coming back to work, but all of the experts are saying that the economy is not going to come back to 100%. Mm-hmm. I mean, even in China, where they have reopened for weeks now, if not months, they're only back about 85, 90% of the way. Restaurants are still seeing a dip. They're saying 30% of small businesses in our country on Main Street are going to close because of all of this. So I'm anticipating that a lot of businesses are not bringing all of their employees back and are not utilizing all of their equipment per se. And I think those are just two separate topics. And I don't know if you want to touch on either of those or if there's something more important to talk about in there.
Yeah, so no, that's perfect. And what people need to remember in that regard with the situation where they've closed business for a period of time and now they're getting ready to reopen is that when you write your insurance policy, typically it's based on a 12-month projection. So you're projecting your 12-month sales, you're projecting your 12-month payroll. So in that regard, one of the conversations we were having with people is if you're laying people off and they're furloughed and you don't have a workforce right now, adjust to save your costs right now, adjust your payroll on your policy for right now. And you can save some money up front.
Okay.
Or if a lot of times people want to wait until their audit, and if their numbers are lower than what they projected, typically they will receive a return.
A return.
But another thing that we told people to do is, look, you've got a fleet of 100 vehicles and you've laid off at least half of your workforce, if not all of your workforce. Those vehicles have full coverage on them. Why don't you move that to vehicles in storage, so that you don't need the collision coverage and the liability. You're going to have the comprehensive for if there's any physical damage to it while it's in storage. So just some cost saving ideas there. But then when you're going to reopen, you have to remember to reverse some of those changes as well.
Right.
So that's one of the things is make sure, and really, I could really summarize all of these conversations with have meaningful conversations with your broker or your agent. But I'm just trying to give some detail here.
I think that's part of
like why looking at.
I mean, that's part of why we're talking here, Torian, is like, as a business owner myself, it's like, I'm so concerned with 90 other things, right. I'm going to take the half hour of my day, the 45 minutes hour of my day to watch this, because I'm looking to understand what should I be focused on. So I'm glad that we're calling it out specifically, but yes, in the end, just have really deep, meaningful conversations with your vendors or partners. It really is what I like to find partners to work with, because they're thinking about me too, like you were saying that on that business plan side that you have some tools actually available in some way.
Yes. So to kind of just touch back on some of the recent vandalism that we've seen countrywide, our risk services team just put out a property damage assessment toolkit. It's about 16 pages, and it doesn't apply just to vandalism. I mean, this is any type of property damage, whether it be a windstorm, hail damage, fire, water, vandalism, whatever it is. You can use this toolkit, and it helps you for the immediacy of when you have that claim or that situation. You can start to look into that packet and say, okay, I can fill some of this information out about assessing this property damage. On top of that, we have come out with also what we're calling our return to work playbook, which is very, very highly recommended. I've taken the time to read through the entire thing. Again, that was put together by our in-house risk services team. And it includes things like employer obligations and liability in situations with infected workplace and things like that. Employee health and safety compliance. They're providing mock OSHA inspections and things along those lines. Tips for reducing exposure in the workplace, customer safety, property loss and prevention. So, I mean, this is all in one return to work playbook
that could be huge.
We have readily available. And I would direct people to our website, www.hubinternational.com, which has our coronavirus resource center. And it's a link there that basically has all of the information that we've been putting out ever since March is part of our coronavirus resource center. You can get videos of our past webinars that we've had. We've got some templates for communications to employees, return from furlough letters. You were kind of talking about, business owners having to take time out of their day to dedicate towards some of this other stuff. And that's what our efforts with providing these templates are dedicated to, is giving that time back to the business owner. We understand you want to reopen. We understand that you have to communicate with your employees what that looks like. We've got some templates that we've already put together that you can make personal to your own business and your own situation that are just available. It's a free resource. You don't even have to be a client to get this stuff.
Gotcha. That's really cool. Actually, it's cool you have those as resources just for those watching. And Torian, for you too. Actually, this Thursday, I'm going to be talking with Chelsea Fall, who started her own HR. Oh, you know Chelsea. Okay, yeah. And so we're going to be talking about internal communication, and we're going to go deeper into some of those elements over there.
Yeah.
But I really like what we. One other thing, I put the link in the chat or in the comment section. So if you go check that the comment section to this video, you'll see there's a link to the Coronavirus Resource Center at Hub International, where you can find those communication packets. I believe that the planning docs and the assessment docs are all there as well. Correct, Torian?
Yes. Yep.
Great, simple, easy answer. Love it. We've simplified it. Just follow that link and get your plan in place. Cool.
And if anybody has questions that are not touched on in that Coronavirus Resource Center, feel free to reach out to me directly. No pressure. And again, you do not have to be a client. I'm more than happy to provide these resources. I'm a Kalamazoo native. I love taking care of fellow Kalamazooans and the businesses around town. So,
how do you want them to get in touch with you?
so my email is torian.greeley, which is TOREAN, period Greeley, GREELEY, at hubinternational.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn as well. So feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I try and stay active on there as much as possible.
Oh, I threw that email down there too. Sorry if somebody picks that up in a weird way, but hopefully it's just valuable questions for you, so we can help other businesses get back open. So really love what we talked about so far. The planning, having that in place, and if they need some help, obviously reaching out to you. Thinking about the reduction in usage of capacity or equipment items, whether that be anything from fleets to space. To employees. I mean, one thing we didn't actually talk about, I guess if everybody's not coming back, there's probably a workers' comp reduction to think about as well.
Yes. Yes.
And
so
then
yep, go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, so that's a situation that, you want to monitor your payroll reporting closely because that is directly correlated to your premium or the amount of money that you're paying for workers' comp coverage. Yeah. So there are some creative solutions that a lot of carriers provide for reporting that payroll, whether it be on a quarterly basis. Some carriers offer pay as you go, or essentially they link it to your payroll system. So when you file your payroll, you are charged your insurance premium to the down to the cent of your payroll instead of projecting it. So it takes out the guesswork, so to speak.
Oh, that's great. Great. And then also thinking about if you are moving into a more remote work situation or even part remote work situation, if you don't have your cyber insurance or other best practices in place, that we talked about earlier, making sure to put those in place as well. I know for us, everything we do is digital. So that cybersecurity policy is huge. I want to kind of shift gears. What are you looking forward to? Like we in Michigan, at least, we are opening, and I'm gonna do it in quotes because like we're still in this weird situation, But June 4th, in just 2 days, we're recording this on June 2nd. Is supposedly the day where the stay-at-home order lifts, and we can start having meets of 100 people, which is crazy to think about. When just literally like tomorrow, it can only be up to 10, but on Thursday it can be 100. Like it's just like it's just weird that there's like just this line like a little bit, but as we head to that, what are you excited about?
I am such a people person. I'm excited to get back around my people. I love networking. Anybody that knows me in town knows that I love to be at the networking events and chat with people and have a beverage and have some laughs. I just miss that in-person interaction. Sure. I think that a lot of people have done a great job in shifting to platforms like Facebook Live and Zoom and Skype for Business and things like that. That's been great. I love being able to see people's smiling faces when I'm talking to them, especially when their beard is as beautiful as yours. And
well, thank you, sir. You're not too shabby yourself. This is the COVID beard.
I'm just ready to get back to action and get around people and back in the community. Here, like I said, I've had a lot of phone conversations with people, but some people don't necessarily like being on the phone like that, and they don't like the technology. They want to talk eyeball to eyeball. So I'm just ready for that. And I would be lying if I. Oh, go on.
You wouldn't be lying. No, sorry. You wouldn't be lying. Don't lie, please don't.
I'd be lying if I didn't say I'm not looking forward to our. We've got a guys trip coming up this weekend, so it happened just in time. It's the ninth year of our golf trip, so I'm very much looking forward to that.
That is awesome. Where are you going?
We're going to Manistee. So we'll be up at Manistee National. Okay. We got about 24 guys going, so it's going to be a good time.
Oh, that's awesome. So happy for you getting out. Me and my wife enjoy the outdoors as well. Whether or not you're going to be roughing it is a whole other thing. It's golf trips, so probably not hotels and everything, but we love being outdoors. So we are so paying attention to the DNR and like, when can we get back camping? When can we get out? I know we can go hiking and everything for day trips and stuff, but but I think that's going to be awesome. You and 20 close friends getting out there. getting out, just out, like just gonna end it there, like getting
Yes, just
out,
out,
right?
just out. Yes, yes.
You said
Without
something in
having my
there.
tail between my legs, like I'm scared.
You said something in there that I wanted to ask about. It's more geared toward marketing, which is like what we do at My Pocket Marketing. But in sales, you were talking about how a lot of people don't want to do the phone calls, and I was curious, what have sales been like? Has it been difficult to do it virtually? Has it been non-existent, or has there been some success?
So that is a great question. I have taken a certain stance, and I don't. This is not to say that there's one right way and one wrong way. I understand that business continues, especially for the ones that stayed open, and that sales need to happen. I personally took a personal pivot in the way that I was doing business, and kind of turned from calling on prospects and things like that to being a beacon of information. I understand you're struggling with business. How can I connect you with a resource that's going to be valuable to
Yeah.
you? And that's the way that I've done it. Now, luckily, with having a strong network and knowing some people that needed some services, I've been able to pick up a few new clients in the last 12 weeks, which is great. But all of that came through providing information, being in touch with people, and just trying to genuinely look out for folks. So I know that there have been people that have been dialing, and there's businesses that are open, and a lot of times they've had some success with that, because a lot of business owners who are operating have been a little bit more available as far as for conversations like that. But I think that the key over the last 12, 13, 14 weeks has just been to connect with people and make sure that they are connected in the areas that they need those resources. So
yeah, one of the things that we always say is, like, sales is not about just getting an X dollar. Sales is about helping. It's
right.
I need to find out, are we correct for you? Are we a fit? And that doesn't always mean just talking about the service. Can we work together as a partnership long term? So that means if you need help now, I need to be a resource for you, and help you as
100%.
best I can. So I love to hear that. That kind of plays a lot into some of the SEO content marketing that we recommend to clients as well. Is like, some clients just want to put out, hey, we have this for sale, go get this, here's a special and here's a sale. And just like, sometimes just you got to inform people about what this is, how it works, why it benefits them. Or what do they need? What's their perspective? Right. Why are they even out there looking for something? So love hearing that. Are you seeing, so you've had those conversations, they naturally flowed into sales then, is what it sounds like, or was there some pushback about it being digital or phone?
No, there hasn't. I honestly haven't really heard of or received too much pushback from people doing virtual. And that's the thing, is like, I try and offer, whatever's going to be easiest for them. If you just want to do a phone call, we can do that. If you're okay with doing Zoom, I'm okay doing that too. It's just about people's comfort level. I try and empathize with, especially, I have not owned a business myself, and I can only imagine having to deal with everything from communicating with your employees that you're going to close your doors, to having to actually physically close those doors and sit around and not know if you're going to be able to open or when you can open. So it's a tough time. We all know that there's a lot of things going on, COVID-19 and beyond, and it's just been a tough time. So I think just being a human and connecting with other people, and making sure they're okay is really what it is. It's not sales right now. It's just cultivating those relationships and making sure that you're taking care of your fellow human.
I get why we both were attracted to BNI and, the giver's gain model, giving, being helpful, you really receive it back in triplicate, and, sure. In gratitude, it's relationship building. So that's really awesome. You're really big in the community. Just saw an announcement a couple days ago. Congratulations, new chairman for Southwest Michigan March of Dimes, into that role. Yes, and I know you're also on some other boards as well.
Yeah, I sit on the junior leadership committee for Big Brothers Big Sisters. Do some work with you with Southwest Michigan Professionals Network, doing some networking things. But Big Brothers Big Sisters and March of Dimes are two organizations that are very near and dear to my heart. And for anyone that's wondering if there's something that they can do right now, those two organizations are always in need of as much support as possible. So March of Dimes and Big Brothers Big Sisters, whether it's physical volunteering or monetary, whatever you can do if you think about it. And literally, I know that it's repeated throughout every not-for-profit organization, but every dollar does seriously count.
Yeah.
And now being closely involved to those organizations, I really see that.
Yeah, here in Kalamazoo, great organizations. I know a lot of the individuals that take part, and they really love what they do and the fruits. So thank you for being part of that, and for being here and sharing some of that
Thanks
story,
for having
giving us some, yeah, for sure, some of that insight into lesser topics, I guess. Maybe not lesser, but like lesser thought of, like they're not top of mind, it's we're so busy and operating and we're thinking about what's next and worrying that we're not always seeing some obvious next steps that can really help us set us up for the future, especially small businesses where cash flow is the issue. So opening some of that up can really help drive growth in the next phase. So any last words that you'd like to share?
I would just say I really can't emphasize enough how highly recommended that return to work playbook is. If anyone is looking at reopening and having any kind of struggles at all, maybe you're not even struggling, maybe you just have questions or concerns. It's a really great tool that will help you out. And the other parting note that I'd leave is, again, I love networking with people locally. So if you'd like to chat, learn more, I'd love to learn more about you. Feel free to reach out, email, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever your platform is, I'll accommodate. So again, Dan, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time to feature me on your page. And this has been great, man. I love it.
Man, very welcome. Very welcome. I mean, with insights and value that you always bring to any conversation, definitely really easy to get on and just talk. Love it. So like Torian was saying, if you'd like to check out those resources, the Corona Resource Center is linked down in the comments. You can find that both in the YouTube and Facebook versions of this video. And then Torian's email is there as well to get in touch. If you would like to be notified about our next live conversation, get to mypocketmarketing.com/join. We will keep you up to date about our next conversations. Next one is this Thursday with Chelsea Fall. We are going to be talking about internal communications, keeping your team on the same page, aligned moving forward, and especially in this timeframe where we're all reopening. What does that mean? What do we need to have in place in policies, communication, et cetera, that's really going to help us capitalize on opening and getting back to business. So looking forward to seeing you this Thursday. And thank you so much for joining me for a bonus conversation with Torian on Road to Open.